Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another forecast. So, our severe weather event that I talked about in our last video is here. We have arrived to our day. That will be on Tuesday. So right now it's still Sunday evening. I'm making this video. So there'll probably be another video on Monday afternoon, just because I'll be a lot closer to the event. So models should hopefully finally agree by then. We've been seeing this event for a while now, as these models just not really agreeing. So hopefully we'll see the HRRR, the NAM, the European, and the GFS all align, just so we know really what's going to be happening. Essentially, what we've got going on is this 500 millibar trough that's kind of dominating the United States right now. I'm going to use the GFS model just because it's kind of been the most consistent with this for a while now. So what we have going on is the center of low somewhere up here in Canada, way up north. So like it's not really on the radar or on this map really at all. You can see the contour lines here are kind of like this. This would be our low pressure. The way low pressure works again with that turning somewhat like this counterclockwise. So we have a low pressure trough kind of moving across the United States. This means we have a little bit of divergence aloft, not too much. You can kind of see these wind vectors are spreading a little bit as we go higher up in the atmosphere. However, because of this low pressure, there's surface lows that are developing here. One in Wisconsin, one in kind of Illinois vicinity. So this surface low way up north here near the Great Lakes, that doesn't really have much to be done with it. What's really important is this other surface low down here, kind of near Illinois and Iowa, because that could bring a lot stronger of winds for this, this whole system here. Essentially, this system is bringing up a lot of higher moisture and better dew points from the Gulf of Mexico. Again, because all of this southerly flow, it's basically been going on for the past few days. This is today's current readings, basically Sunday night. This is, I believe, noon on Sunday. So right about now, we'd be somewhere around right here. What's happening is, surface-wise, we have a lot of southerly flow. You can see these little wind barbs here. They're basically like this, which essentially means the wind is all going this way. It's going north. So any moisture from the Gulf of Mexico is being advected north and north. And this pattern with northern advection is going to continue basically the next few days. We can see Monday night a little bit of, issue for that moisture, but otherwise just southerly flow into this whole area for a while now, which bring a lot of warm temperatures. I mean, it's like 50 degrees. To be honest, the other day here in northern Illinois, it was snowing. And now it's 50s, and tomorrow it's going to be like 60s even, and Tuesday 70s. I mean, that's kind of incredible. That's how strong all this southerly flow is, bringing all this warm air from the Gulf of Mexico. And that's just kind of building up here in the Midwest. We can see here, right? The dew points here are a lot higher than would be usual for February. 50s and even some 60s here in the south as well. And on Wednesday, got a 0Z here, which would be about when storms are firing, maybe 21Z as well. Lots of moisture up here, all the way into Illinois. Illinois is definitely the main threat for this system. You can see the SPC has outlined this slight risk here for a pretty broad area. But I think the main reason for this is because models aren't really agreeing, right? So we have the GFS model here, which shows low pressure centered somewhere in this vicinity. It's a little, let's see, we have southerly here, or sorry, excuse me. Oh yeah, so northerly winds coming from the northeast, going this way. So a little semblance of rotation. I would place a surface low somewhere around here, but it's not very well defined. We also have the Euro model, which shows something similar, probably a little bit moved of a surface low, but same thing. Possible surface low forming right here as well for the European model. For the NAM model, this surface low is basically not very strong at all. The NAM model is kind of an outlier right now because of the fact that it thinks there's going to be lots of cloud cover. So we can look at average cloud cover. This is basically showing clouds all over this region, which, isn't really what you want for storm formation. So that's part of why it's kind of underdoing these temperatures, I feel like. Could that be accurate? I don't think so. Basically, just because of the HRRR model. So the HRRR model is another convectively allowing model like the NAM, but it also shows a lot of these warmer temperatures. So that's part of why I'm thinking we're going to see the event that HRRR and the GFS and the European are kind of showing. I think the NAM's kind of an outlier here, but you never really know what can happen with it, right? The NAM is showing a surface low, I think, again, somewhere in this vicinity in northern Illinois. somewhere right around here. So a little higher up than the other models. And then the HRRR finally, and the wrap, they're basically the same model here. The wrap and the HRRR. They're based on the same thing. But let's see, 21Z here. I believe this is, again, centered somewhere around the Illinois vicinity. Again, also more north, but same difference for all of these. Essentially, they're all saying we're going to see very strong southerly flow, 30 knots even down here in central Illinois here. That's really strong southerly flow, and I'm pretty sure that's part of why the HRRR has an SGP, significant tornado parameter, kind of high right now for this whole region here. The HRRR also is kind of an outlier. It's more extreme in its in how it's looking at this event. So the 3 Cape here in the 70s and sometimes even the 100s here for the HRRR. The GFS we can't really see it with, but we can see Cape with the GFS. Again, not nearly as strong. There's this plume of more southern I think, Cape here. You can see mean layer Cape as well, somewhere in the middle of its extent. So there's kind of a brief capping removal. There's definitely stronger Cape here as well, kind of in the northeast region, kind of my area as well, which is interesting for me as well. But yeah, here's that turning of the low levels with the sounding. The only issue that a lot of these seem to have is this capping inversion right here, right? We can see here, kind of, 68, 57 dew, 68 over 57 dew point moisture. That's pretty good for February for sure, but there's kind of this capping inversion, right? I'll try to zoom in if I can. But you can see here in the hodograph, right in this part. So, see, the temperature kind of stays consistent right here. That kind of shows a capping inversion, but it's not very strong. The main inhibitor with this setup is this capping inversion, though. And a lot of models have been showing this capping inversion for a while now, and that's kind of been the question: will the cap get eroded? That depends a lot on storm formation the day before, as well as just how many clouds are there. Because a lot of stuff can form clouds. It really just depends on what's going to be there. But moisture is definitely very, very good for this event, and this cap is something we're questioning. But with this hodograph, this QT as well, we're seeing definitely an uncapped environment. This just isn't very much capping inversion at all. Lots of cape to be had as well. 1,600 joules per kilogram surface based, 1,400 effective inflow. Basically, all of this is showing definitely a pretty stout tornado environment and supercell environment as well. I believe, if I can click this here, right here in Illinois. So, kind of curious about that. The European model, unfortunately for me, does not show anything based on Cape, which that's unfortunate, but I can't get soundings for Cape. But we can see that it's very similar to the GFS. I mean, these are practically identical, 2 centers of low, and a lot of very strong southerly flow. So we can kind of assume the same thing. So I'm assuming the European model also lines up with the GFS as well. With the SPC's outlook, I wouldn't be surprised if we see an enhanced risk here, just because as we get closer to this event, we're definitely going to have a more specific region of where is this storm's going to form. And I think that we're going to see an enhanced risk somewhere here in this vicinity. So I'm very curious about that as well. The NAM model, again, though, it's definitely an outlier, but I'm curious if we will see a NAM come to fruition. The NAM model has this surface low basically way more way more west than the other models are showing. A lot of more quality moisture over here and just much less on this half. Definitely quality moisture over the entire region, but dew points are much higher here in the Missouri area for the NAM model. The main reason I'm trusting the GFS mostly is because of the fact that this has been going on for a few days now. If you look at the 18Z, this is from 2 days ago, and it's basically the same thing, just less extreme. There's this plume of Cape of instability right here in central southern Illinois. Back to the 0Z even, just, I don't know, they kind of got different as each one went on, but in our last video, we saw basically something like this. Mean layer Cape again, 25, 30 knots of flow, basically easterly. I believe this has changed a little bit now, although the GFS and the HRRR do differ this way. So the GFS model shows basically mainly eastern flow in terms of storm motion, but the HRRR is showing a lot more northeasterly flow. So that could be definitely interesting for chasing, which, by the way, I am going to be trying to chase this day. Mostly because this is right in my backyard, so I'm definitely hoping to see something interesting when I go on these chases, unless we see something way over here in Iowa and Missouri, and that's a lot of driving. But this could be definitely a very stout environment for all hazards, to be honest. I think tornadoes and wind are the main threats. If we look at the HRRR's continuation, they kind of have going on here is, I think Tuesday is the main threat. Monday, there's not really much going on. Maybe some showers that could lead to slight drainage of dew points, but nothing really going through. The HRRR just shows a little bit of showery activity right before the event, though, which is interesting to know. I'm curious if this would lead to anything specific, because this is a convectively allowing model. You can kind of see some of these dew points get drained a little bit. You also wonder how much will that damper temperatures. That could mean that we end up seeing less severe weather up here near Chicago and more so in the south and central part of the state. But overall, this environment definitely looks indicative of supercells. HRRR also shows kind of this plume of moisture, which I'll highlight right here. You can see these darker colors here. And as the day moves on, this kind of stays together and pushes against the lower dew points. So in a way, we end up with a kind of dry line setup right here, where we can see a few little cells coming off of this dry line. And we see this right here in the simulated reflectivity. See these little cells that form, and they move their way with the storm motion northeast, just like so. See with each frame, again, these kind of form even on the second layer here. Unfortunately, the HRRR doesn't go any further than this, just because, again, it's a very in-depth model, so I'm definitely going to wait until tomorrow to do even more in-depth look at this. But the RAP model can kind of give us a little bit more information on what we'll be seeing, albeit not much. I mean, I think this is the furthest we can really go with this. But 3 Cape, according to the RAP model, we're going to see 3 Cape basically maintaining itself up here into Michigan and stuff. So definitely curious about supercells here in Michigan as well. That could be an interesting product as well. We can take a sounding here. I'm a little curious about that. Let's delete these. Michigan is involved in the slight risk, just not really much of it. But there could be supercells that form in Michigan as well, and that's a lot of 3 Cape. 190 joules per kilogram is insane. Surface vorticity could be involved as well. Let me see if I can get that. Surface vorticity here in Michigan as well. We could see basically enhanced risk spanning this entire region here. This could be very similar to that the Chicagoland event that occurred in July of last year as well. There's not really many similarities between the event, but we could see this enhanced risk that forms basically day of, like we saw at the Chicagoland event. So basically on July, I think it was July 18th, something like that, there was this little, basically a 2% risk here in Northern Illinois. Let me go on a map just for drawing. There's kind of this 2%, I believe, for this entire region just for tornadoes. And then as day went on, there was a 10% risk right here in Chicagoland that got formed as well. So I'm wondering if we'll see a similar progression for the SPC, or if we'll see an enhanced risk right before the event. Again, this event has been forecast for a while now. We're also seeing the day 4 has been eliminated. So what we were seeing before was this kind of 2-day setup with a first day up here, this region right here, and a second day kind of this vicinity. So also curious what our day 3 outlook will be tomorrow, in our day 2, 2 days from now on the day of this event. But I will say, like we've been saying for a while now, this has been the main show, and I've been glad to have predicted that, because again, this channel is a lot for my own personal growth, and I think that me predicting this so far ahead of time is definitely nice. Although, so did everyone else also predict this, so I guess take that with a grain of salt. But I think this has been kind of success all the way to this point. Hopefully, I'll be able to see something when I chase this day as well. So if I can't chase, it also depends a lot on just where will this event really land. I'm trusting the GFS model the most here, just because of the fact that this has just been so accurate up to this point. It's been very just maintained. I unfortunately can't really get good reflectivity data from the GFS, but I think it shows a similar thing to the HRRR. Low convergence band somewhere in Illinois. Just really depends on the day of where it will form. But off of that convergence band, we get a few little supercells that'll move their way this direction. They'll be pretty small supercells as well, but definitely curious. So there'll be more updates as we get closer to this event. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.